Well, parents, AI isn't just coming, it is here. From classrooms to cell phones, kids are using tools like Chat GPT every day, often before their parents even know it. So, how can we make sure our kids are using AI safely and in ways that actually help them learn and grow? Well, today we have Leslie Tyler. She's a director of parent education at Pinwheel and a leading voice in children's digital wellness. Thanks for joining me today, Leslie.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Meg. It's really great to be with you today.
Well, we're going to be talking about AI, and which you know a whole lot about. I don't know much about technology and AI. I do use Chat GPT, um, but it was really remarkable to me to learn that there's this big disconnect. 58% of teenagers have used Chat GPT, but only about a third of parents out there.
Mhm.
So, what's the gap? Is it just that we don't know what's going on and our kids do? Or why is there, how can parents get up to speed on AI tools and why are we lagging behind our kids?
That's a great question. I think just as you said, in the last couple of years, AI, especially ChatGPT, but there's other AI models too, has really exploded on the scene. And everybody from large companies to parents are trying to figure out how do we use it, and what does it mean? And of course, as many new technologies come, kids are early adopters. They, get in and play with stuff more than parents do. Even without parents or adults tend to need a reason to use something, and kids don't. They're like, "Ah, let me
Oh,
see
no.
how this works," and they bang away on it. So,
Yep.
they're often early adopters, and unfortunately, with new technologies, kids are not typically considered when they're being developed because the
Oh, yeah.
majority of the world is adults, and so you make it a technology for adults, and then kids are a bit of an afterthought. So, for example, Gemini is the AI that's made by Google,
Mhm.
and they have just recently announced that they're going to make Gemini available to kids under 13 who have child Google accounts inside of Family Link, which is their parental controls. And it's unclear. It's within Family Link, so there might be some parental controls, but it's unclear what they are. So the only thing that I could find is that you could be able to turn it off, which isn't much of a parental control. So
No.
I think so it's really a timely topic, because, even kids that might not have been, exposed to it might get exposed to AI this way. So, anyway, they're often early adopters and often not the first audience that tech developers think of. And,
You know, that's a great point. Kids are so on top of, well, older kids, what's coming out and how can they use it and what do their friends have? And adults just seem to be not that interested. Tell me about Gemini. What does it do?
well, all of these large language models, so the biggest one that people are familiar with is ChatGPT. The the company that makes ChatGPT is called OpenAI. Um, and it's the largest, has the most users. And they all work similarly. The Gemini is the one from Google. There is one from a company called Anthropic that's called Claude, Claude. So those are some of the different language models that you can use, and they're all free. So, I encourage people to just go on and try it out, ask it questions. Generative AI, what it does is you can ask it questions and it will answer questions. That's the basic thing it will do. So there's a big amount of substituting for search. So instead of searching, um, what is the what's the maximum IRA deduction for 2025? Something that you might Google,
Mhm.
you can put into a language model. And instead of in the Google experience, you'll get a link from the IRS. You'll look through the links. You'll decide which links are, worthy of clicking on. You click on the link and you read the answer. Instead of that, GPT or a large language model AI will just give you the answer. And so one of the problems is that sometimes it gives wrong answers. So many of the language models, and one of my favorites is Perplexity for search because it cites all of its sources. So you can look and see, oh, this one's from the IRS, so this is probably the correct answer. There's several important skills that everyone using AI, especially kids, need to learn. And it's similar to the kind of skills of Googling. What's a legitimate source? Where did they get the information? Is this biased? All of those kind of critical thinking skills that you need to use when you use the internet at all. And also, especially with AI.
Mhm. Well, it's hard because there is so much out there, and I
Mhm.
go through a lot of research papers, and even still, you have to wade through them and go, this is junk study or this is junk stuff. And I
Mhm.
imagine for kids, it's a little harder to figure out what's
That's
what's
real.
correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And and a lot of them probably just don't even care. They're like, oh well, that's what they told me. Who cares? I'm gonna believe that. That's what they said.
Oh, that's
So
fair.
yeah, it is really an odd thing. So let's talk about what's healthy and what's harmful. Can you tell us what some of the signs are that your child's use of AI chat box is supporting their learning versus replacing it, or maybe even exposing them to inappropriate content?
Yeah. So that's an excellent point. And the example that I gave was kind of a substitute for search, finding information, finding it faster with less
Mhm.
clicks. That's one use of AI. There are many other uses of AI. So one of the other big uses is writing. So writing, telling stories, you can ask AI. It will generate writing and content for you. So, you can ask it to write me a song about XYZ thing and make it in this tone, and it'll write a song and play it for you. You can, in some of the models, you can create images. So you don't need to look up inappropriate images. You could tell the AI, make me this pornographic image, for example.
Gosh, wow.
And so and now AI right now, they're not very good at people. So, I try to make an image for our website, for example, and it's like, that looks terrible. People have 7 fingers and stuff, but it's coming. It's going to be getting better. And one of the other challenges, you can also upload things to the AI and ask it to do things. So, for example, I was decorating a room. You upload a photo of the room and say, "These are the furniture that I have. Decorate this for me." And it will spit back an image. Some of it is quite good. And then the third big area of concern of AI are the AI friends. So this, in my view, and the research that you asked about the research, this is one of the things that the research. This is one of the things that's really new about AI versus the internet tools that we had before, and one of the areas of biggest concern for children, especially, is you can talk to AI and ask it questions, and it will answer you. You can have a whole conversation with AI, and there, is a pseudo friend. Now,
Right.
the AI chatbot wants to please you, right? They want to tell you an answer that you want to hear. It's
Mhm.
kind of how it's programmed. Otherwise, you'll stop using it. So it's
Right,
like,
right,
so
right, right.
it's like trying to give you, and you'll notice it'll say, "That's a great question. Okay, we could I mean, it always gives you this really positive, yeah, rah back. And
Mhm.
and from a child development standpoint, learning how to make friends and build relationships is one of the key skills that children need to learn. I'm sure you see this in your
Yeah,
practice. And if you have a friend who is a yes man, essentially,
yeah.
right, it's so much easier to develop a relationship with an AI chatbot who is trying to please you because versus a real person
Right,
that has, disagreements and, you know, are messy,
right,
has messy
right,
emotions, right? And so it's, but you can be kind of lulled into this, relationship a with a machine. And
yeah.
and that's one of the challenges. And so, one of the things Pinwheel actually has we have a kid-friendly AI chat is called Pinwheel GPT. It does not create images, and it is clearly not a person. So we are very, there are some AIs like character AI, and there's been some problems, some serious problems with it, but that pose as people, and we feel very strongly that it shouldn't pose as people. This is not a person, and this is does not substitute for your friends.
No, no. It's really hard to wrap your mind around a little bit, kids talking to computers and feeling like they're talking to a real person. I just talked recently with a young man who early in his teen years, was groomed through gaming, actually. So does AI could do that? Or no, it wouldn't do that because there's no real person there. I mean, it technically could groom there, but what's the end result?
A Meta has this antitrust lawsuit, and so there's been some documents that have been submitted in the lawsuit, that were internal Meta documents, and it was pretty shocking. I think it was something like 2 million. They have identified accounts that had predatory behavior, so groomer accounts or accounts that looked like they would be groomer accounts, and that they recommended following like 2 million minor accounts. I mean, it's appalling, really.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can use AI to stop doing that.
You'd hope. I mean, you hope that you can use AI for some really good things, to get control over this, because unfortunately, the anonymity of a screen, or, talking to somebody, allows sort of the worst in people to come out, at least with kids. They want to experiment being the bad kid, or this kind of a thing. So, how can parents figure out if their children are being harmed by using AI? Are there certain signs they should look for? I mean, because I imagine kids get addicted to AI like they get addicted to anything else, right?
Yeah, could. And I think the signs are probably what you tell your patients already. Like, the signs are probably already, similar: depression, not wanting to engage, not doing things in real life, that sort of thing. Um, and I think, one of the things, unfortunately, is like parents have to parent in the digital world just like you do in real life. So, who are their friends? What are they doing? Just because they're in their room doesn't mean that they're safe. Back in the day, there was that commercial about it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? Right. And now your kids are in their room, so they're fine. But that is not the case. They could not in their room chatting with adults. Right. So I think part of it is that you have to know what it is they're doing, and be involved, and with AI specifically, what kind of tools they're using. And I think, obviously you have to sort of play with it yourself and see, how does it work? And you know, just like in other parenting things, you have to model good behavior, set appropriate boundaries, discuss issues, I mean, kids like to say, look what I found, look what this will do, right? And this will, you're like, oh, can you show me how that works? Oh, that's interesting. Can you make it do this? Right. And you can get into a conversation about what it does, and, have an opportunity to guide.
I think it's intimidating to most parents because many times kids are a step ahead of them.
Mhm.
And parents are going into an area where their kids are, and they're not really well versed in it. And so they sort of feel like, well, my kid knows this better than I do. So how am I going to navigate this? But I love that, what you just said is ask kids questions and have them explain it to you, kind of like you're really interested, because you want to do it, but that's how you really get to know what your kids are doing.
Of course, they roll their. I'm like, you don't know how to do anything. You're like, you're right, I don't. So how does that work, right? And that just, if you come in with curiosity, like you can be the like out of touch old person. It's fine. Play that role.
Yeah, and ask your kid to be your teacher. A lot of parents say, my teenager never wants to talk to me. And I said, well, either you're doing too much talking, you're not asking enough questions. Because if kids think that you really want to know what they think and you want them to teach you about something, they are all over it. because they love sort of feeling smart, particularly smarter than their parents. Talk about the emotional part of AI, because I imagine kids get pretty emotionally attached to this non-person. Or
They could. It's definitely a danger.
Mhm.
And and in everything there's opportunities and there's risks. So
Mhm.
there certainly are opportunities. I mentioned, do we have an AI chatbot? And so I looked up a few of the questions that kids are asking it. And I forgot to mention, with our chatbot, which is free, there's a parent monitoring. So parents can see what their kids are asking and what the chatbot answers, and has an opportunity to start a conversation. But some of the questions are how to do this in Minecraft, how to, do this thing fishing, or, some of them are like that. And some of them are, what do I do about, like, my skin is peeling? What could this be? So, a lot of medical questions.
Yeah.
How do I get the cat to like me? Right?
I
So
love
fully
it.
funny questions like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also it can role play with you. So, it's danger that you could get addicted or think it's a real person, but there's an opportunity where one kid asked a question about, I told a lie to my friend and I want to come clean and I'm not sure how. And so this is like a serious issue. And
Yeah.
you can role play with AI. You can say, you are my friend and this is what you're like. This is and this is what happened, and I want to tell you this. And so give me suggestions about how to have this conversation. And then you can role play, and it will play your friend and you play you. And so in that way there's an opportunity.
And I could see some really good uses for that, because there are a lot of kids and parents who have a hard time communicating with one another.
Mhm.
And I imagine they could come on AI, and AI might tell them, or they could talk to them about it.
Yes, you can brainstorm. I did talk to one mom, and she she takes her kids' text messages to her and plugs it in AI and says, "What is happening?"
Love it. Why- That's a little
Like, her
spooky
her
too. Yeah.
teenager, like, "Why is this going off the rails? What can I do to get this back on?"
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely, parents can use AI to brainstorm how to communicate with their kids. I mean, maybe it'll give you some good ideas. My personal experience is that at first, it usually tells you what you already know, which is helpful,
Yeah.
helpful to remind yourself what you already know. But if you continue to ask questions and continue to push, sometimes it'll come up with some more insights that you maybe hadn't thought of. And so uh, it is a kind of a good brainstorming partner in
It
that way
must be
too.
kind of, yeah, it must be kind of weird, because I know with Chat GPT, which I use, sometimes you get the sense that it is smarter than I am, which is really weird. It's just, a bunch of information that's been populated by, people who have that information. Do you think we could, well, we probably could, get to the point where kids are assigned a paper they need to write on a president? Can they go into AI and go, okay, write me a paper on President Obama?
They absolutely can. And that is one of the big challenges in education right now, is to try to um, figure out how to use AI for learning
Mhm.
without cheating. So I think,
Yeah.
again, we were talking about the opportunities and the risks. So there's certainly an opportunity to create. You can write stories, you could write poetry, you can create. But but how might we use AI to foster
Mhm.
thinking instead of substituting for
Right.
thinking? And I think, and before we had these tools, you had to do the thinking and you had to do the research. And, when Google came out, people were like, oh my gosh, like, people will just cheat. They'll look it up on Google. Right. And, as we know, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
But I think, how to use AI in the classroom. And again, it comes back to parents knowing what your kids are doing,
Mhm.
because there is a big question right now in schools about what do we do? Because you can totally do that. You can say, Write me a 5-page paper about Obama's presidency and the big challenges that they have, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
and it will write it for you. Um, and that's,
That
you didn't do any work. That's
well,
not
and I mean,
learning. You're not learning.
well, and the weird thing is I could probably sit in with a patient and say, "Okay, the patient has this symptom, this symptom, this symptoms. What's wrong and how do I treat it?" I mean,
Mhm.
that's
Yes.
cheating everybody. I mean, I would never want to practice medicine that way, but it technically could be that way, where a parent could call a call center, and just like
Mhm.
they knew a nurse or a doctor, and say, "My child has a fever. He has this and this and this. What do I do?" And maybe AI would tell him what to do. I mean,
Maybe so.
yeah,
And sometimes it hallucinates, right? That's when it gets it wrong. It's called hallucinating. So sometimes it just gets it flat out wrong.
yeah,
And I think that one of the things to know is the way that AI works kind of under the covers is that um, it it sort of takes stuff that exists and predicts the next word. That's the really oversimplified way to explain how it works.
mhm,
So it's not creative. It doesn't come up with anything new. And this is really where the um really where the human piece comes in,
mhm,
is taking the information that you can get out of AI, taking the output of writing or whatever, and and bringing the human creativity to it.
mhm,
So under knowing what questions to ask. So, it wouldn't be cheating. It would, you would still have a learning exercise if you did the same paper on President Obama and asked, what were some of the main challenges? This would be what were the some of the main challenges? What was the same? What are some of the big legislative achievements?
mhm,
What are the, trends that were happening at the time? So this is the same as, looking it up in the library book.
mhm.
And then, if you took those pieces of information and you kind of drafted up some bullet points. Oh, here's my essay. Number one is this, and here's my opinion about it, blah, blah, blah. And then it writes it for you or edits it or proofreads it. You know, that's a way to use AI as scaffolding, but still having your own, you're still having a learning
Right.
exercise.
You just wonder if AI could kind of put their spin on it. For instance, maybe you're
Mm.
talking to an AI who didn't like Obama, and you're saying, "Plug in this information." Could they create it like he's a bad guy versus a good guy, or you know what I mean? Anybody like that you put in, can they put spin on it? Well, I guess it would depend on any
Absolutely.
spin that the person put in when they're creating it.
Yes, and also what the language model is trained on, what sources of information it originally had. So it's a really excellent point. It's one of the big problems is bias.
Yeah.
And that comes back to critical thinking. You have to say, that's negative, this is positive, that's not really what I wanted to say. And it's the same with Google. You look at the sources, is that credible? Is it accurate? Is it biased? And I think, for sure, we need to do a lot more critical thinking. And it's hard to know, it's hard to know everything because things are changing so fast. And, when you can create images that are good and believable and are absolutely fabricated, it's a big challenge.
It is,
Um,
and you think of what kids could potentially do this, they could take the face of one kid, and then they put a body of another, and then they put it out on social media and go, "Look at so and so," but it's not really so and so. It could get
not really
really
them.
pretty dicey. We only had a
Yes.
few minutes left, so I want you to teach us. I want you to teach us what to do and what Pinwheel does and how they help people. So, let's talk about, first of all, um, when it comes to any screen, whether there's AI involved or not, what is realistic screen time for kids when they're on it so much doing their schoolwork? Are there specific recommendations that you give parents about how much time kids can be on screens?
I think that just the hard and fast, like you said, there's kids that are on screens at school more than other kids. Obviously, an 8-year-old is going to be different from a 15-year-old. But so as opposed to the actual overall number, amount of time, it's we look more or, advise more about, what they're doing.
Mhm.
Um, and, while they're on it. And certainly, having time away from screens is important for your eyes and, and for your mental health. So I think, there's a few skills that kids need to learn when it comes to phones. One of them is self-regulation.
Mhm.
It is something that, putting the phone down,
Mhm.
and, especially, when there are, social media especially, are trying to keep you there. But not only social media. I mean, Netflix does this too, right? Like,
Right.
they're trying to keep your attention. And so, kids and adults, we have to learn how to self-regulate
Mhm.
and,
Yeah, and that's
and
hard.
yeah,
I mean, that's really
it's
hard.
hard.
It's hard. I mean, I can get on YouTube and I'm looking at what kind of carpet I should buy, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at a soccer game. It's like,
Right.
what happened? It just
What happened? I would,
jumps to you. And I'm an older person. It's hard for me. I imagine for a 15-year-old, it's really hard. So you need to teach your kids some self-regulation, and that could take some time for kids to get used to it. What should parents do and know about AI? Like, how can they protect their kids from bad AI and becoming hooked on it? I mean, if kids can be hooked on it, particularly with this sort of emotional attachment they can have, feeling like maybe there's another person. What are some things that parents can do to help using AI with their kids?
well, I think that, being educated yourself, I think in a lot of these digital parenting, just like in real life parenting, there's, modeling, and even with self regulation, it's hard for all of us. I think, I'm a big believer in sharing your own struggles with your kids. Like, I'm not the know all, like, perfect person, I fall down all the time. So, you know, um, and, setting appropriate boundaries and, uh, helping them by modeling that, modeling the struggle and
Mhm.
the success that you have with your own phone. In fact, there's a lot of there's some a survey that I read about kids say that they definitely want to have a better relationship with their phones than their parents have. So it's, they have been on the receiving end of disconnection because someone's lost in the phone, and, they don't, and so the motivation is there to not do that. And so, it's kind of a learning process together. And then as far as AI, to the extent that you can know what your kids are using, uh, Pinwheel is a phone that's designed for kids that's managed by parents so that parents only allow the apps
Mhm.
that they want to allow. And, you know, don't put on ChatGPT. They can use it on the computer, but, you need to be aware of what they're using. Just like, the video games that they're playing, the Discord servers that they're in, you just need to be aware of what they're doing and, what could be there. And then, and look for signs that
Mhm.
it's not going well. More conflict, more withdrawal, more, less energy, signs of depression, and which could be because of, because of an AI, or it could be because of a bunch of other things. I mean, these are things that they could be
Yeah.
having a real life conflict. So, um, things that you have to be aware of.
So, how is the Pinwheel phone different from Gab or Gizmo or any of the other ones out there, or is it quite similar?
They're similar. All of the kid designed phones, give parents ability to manage all aspects of the phone,
Mhm.
contact, save list, apps, and so on. The biggest difference between the kid specific phones are the apps.
Mm.
So Gab is the most restrictive. They have the least number of apps available.
Mhm.
Um, Bark is the least restrictive. They let you have any app and monitor, including social media.
Mm.
We're kind of in the middle. You can have any app except for social media and adult apps. So it's but we also give parents information
Mhm.
about in our app library. It rates red, yellow, green, and tells you why apps are rated that way.
Oh.
For example, and you can still download it, but for example, you'd say this one has explicit content, or it allows live chat with adults.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, um, the and you may be okay with that.
Yeah.
Just depend. I mean, if your kid is 17, like, maybe that's fine.
Yeah,
Anyways,
but not 13. Yeah.
not 13.
Yeah.
Or, for example, there's an app, it's at the top of the list, so I always give it an example. It's like starts with an A, but it's an app that is for recruiting high school athletes to go to college. Okay, so of course it allows live chat with adults. Like, that's the thing the app does. But if your kid is in that age range, that's probably fine.
Right.
And interestingly, Spotify, which is one of the most popular apps on our phone, has some serious explicit content. So, it gives warnings.
Yeah.
That people use it anyway.
Right. Oh, yeah, it can. And I kind of old school, and I listen to Spotify all the time. And sometimes a song will come up and go, "What? What did you just say?" Particularly Cardi B stuff. I mean, it's like, what? I just want to turn it down so the kids.
Well, there are, interestingly, there are parental controls for Spotify that will limit explicit content in songs. Like, the songs are tagged explicit, like Cardi B's, right? But podcasts are not. There is no rating system for podcasts, and so there's no explicit labels, and they do allow user-generated podcasts. So. And there's video podcasts. So there's some, again, and there's no way to control that from a parental control standpoint because it's not labeled. So again, you just have to be, aware and on it as much as possible. Or don't use
parents really have a lot of work to do that. And my day with kids, we never had to worry about this, but there's so much extra work out there that parents have to do now. My guest has been Leslie Tyler. She's the director of parent education and the chief mom at Pinwheel. It's a leading kid tech company known for its kids-safe phones and AI tools. Leslie, this has been amazing. How can people find out more about Pinwheel, more about what you're doing? Because I'm sure after this, a lot of parents are going to want to know more. So where can parents find you?
Thanks. At Pinwheel, www.pinwheel.com is our website. So you can buy phones. We also have also from our website, if you go to the apps tab, you can get to Pinwheel GPT, which is our AI kid-friendly, parent-monitored AI chatbot. It's a great way to get started with AI because it's a safe environment, and also parents can see what kids are asking and what the AI is answering. And that's a completely free app that you can download for any device. It does not have to be only on Pinwheel.
Well, wonderful. I want you to know that I am so excited to be offering the PGK Insider. This is a place that I really want you to participate because we have a community here, and that is that we are all together. We're not doing this parenting journey all by ourselves. I want this to be a place where you can find solid answers, and you don't have to agree with me. That's perfectly fine. My job here is not to tell you what to do. My job is to give you solid answers so that I can help you parent your way, not my way. Just go to my website, meekerparenting.com, and sign up today. You won't be sorry.